Today on BRStv, we're gonna go over the top return pump mistakes to help you make the right decision for your next setup. Mistake number one being not properly sizing the pump.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. So the return pump is probably one of the most vital pieces of equipment in our setup, right? So without it, really nothing happens. So if you undersize this guy, you're not gonna get that gallon per hour return rate or overturn rate that you need. We recommend that rate to be about 5 to 10 times your entire system volume. So look for a pump that's rated to about 5 to 10 times total system volume.
Exactly, and the opposite is also true. Oversizing your pump is going to prevent contact time with your skimmer, your refugium, any of the filtration in your system. Now, if you're concerned about undersizing, something like this CJ pump, which is an AC style pump, you can add a ball valve to.
Yep, yeah, so if you don't want to deal with that or have a ball valve or extra plumbing parts, you can always get yourself a really nice DC pump that has a controller on it and just adjust the gallon per hour rate as you need.
Mistake number two, not accounting for head pressure.
Right, so a mistake that a lot of hobbyists actually make is not taking head pressure into account when they're adding a return pump. And this is why just like a power head or something isn't going to work. It has to have the power to move that volume of water up and through the plumbing and back into the system. So make sure that you're using a pump that has the right head pressure, that is rated for the distance that it has to push that actual water, okay? Flow is not always enough.
Exactly. And so not only do we have to account for the amount of tubing or PVC, we also have to account for valves, for 90s, 45s.
Any type of elbows, anything like that.
Exactly. Luckily, most manufacturers add head pressure charts for their pumps. So just take a look, we got eyeball.
Yeah, and again, if you're really concerned about it, you can always do like what we said earlier, get yourself a really nice DC pump and you can always dial it back. All right, so the next mistake would be choosing a low quality pump.
Exactly, so what we're gonna run into with low quality pumps is excess noise. They're also gonna be less efficient, which is gonna mean more heat in your tank. And also, as we just discussed, this is a vital part of your system, so reliability is key.
Yeah, and you want it to be nice and quiet is another one too. If you've got your display tank in a nice part of your house, you don't want it to be sitting there humming and buzzing the whole time. So a lot of times a high quality pump or a pump that specifically advertises itself as being ultra quiet is gonna be a good choice for you. Now, best way to know if it's a high quality pump, really shop around, look at the reviews, listen to trusted reefers. If you find somebody using one that you're like, wow, that looks like a great pump, it's really quiet, does it work well? Yes, great, I want that one.
Which leads us to mistake number four, which is gonna be not accounting for redundancies.
Yeah, so we already talked about and touched on the fact that this is probably one of the most important pieces of equipment for your marine setup. So, if it goes out, the whole system can crash, okay? And especially if you're on vacation or something like that. Yeah, sure, you may get that notification, but all of a sudden everything stops. So having a spare pump, even if it is a lower grade model, a cheap pump, but it's ready to go, it's there, you can easily hook it in to take the place of the one that you've got, is always a great idea.
Exactly. Otherwise, if you don't want to have a replacement pump on hand, you can also use something like a battery backup, which won't save you in the unlikely event that your return pump goes out, but will in the event of a power outage.
All right, so the next mistake would be internal versus external.
Exactly. So we talked a lot about head pressure, and typically external pumps are going to handle head pressure a lot better than internal pumps. So if you have a remote sump, typically you're going to want to use an external pump. They're also going to be more efficient at handling additional head pressure. For most systems out there with your typical sump under the tank, internal is the way to go. Yeah,
and if with an external pump, you may have to do some additional plumbing, cut some extra holes, add a bulkhead, but it may be well worth it in the end to account for that extra head pressure if you've got a long way to go. All right, our next mistake is an easy one to do, but skipping that regular maintenance.
Exactly. Nobody likes to do maintenance, especially with return pumps. That means your system is down. They're not always the easiest to clean. However, we need to make sure we do this for exactly the reason we've been talking about. It's a vital part of your system.
Yeah, it'll keep the equipment working properly, running effectively, and it is a pain, especially with the return pump. You've got to take that thing out of the sump, or if it's external especially, you've got to take everything apart. One quick recommendation for anybody putting an a return pump in, whether it's external or internal, use a PVC union, all right? Always use these quick connect unions. It's gonna save you so much time. And that goes for if you have to do maintenance or if you have to replace the pump on the fly.
Which leads us to our next mistake, not choosing the right size plumbing for your pump.
That's right, so the wrong size plumbing coupled with too many elbows, too many twists and turns, too many valves, all of these things are going to reduce the efficacy of your return pump. So make sure you're following the manufacturer's recommendations for plumbing diameter, and don't don't get too creative with too many bends and twists and valves. It's just going to slow things down and cause more problems and more maintenance in the future.
Great point. I would even recommend plumbing your tank before choosing a return pump so you know what to account for.
Absolutely.
Our next mistake is going to be not accounting for potential future upgrades.
Yeah, so very few of us know what the future of our tank is going to be. So things can happen. You decide to go a different direction. You decide you need an upgrade. So make sure you're doing things in your system to account for that and be ready in case that happens. Again, one of the easiest ones we can do is add those quick connect unions after our pumps to make sure that we can pull those out really easy, stick a new one in, a bigger one if we need to, whatever the case may be.
Exactly, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a new tank, right? We can add reactors to our return pump down the roads. So maybe oversize and tune the pump down to account for that.
Yep, UV sterilizer, anything.
Exactly. So hopefully these tips have helped you make the right decision for your aquarium.
We'll see you next time.